Have you, like Al, wondered which thoughts should be encouraged and which thoughts should be avoided when we find ourselves awake at night? In this episode, we're going to see how we actually cannot predict how well we're going to sleep based on whatever thought we have at night. And we cannot decide which thoughts to produce, which makes it tricky to try to do so. Finally, in a plot twist, we're going to see that there are actually some thoughts that in the long term really help you sleep. Welcome to this episode of Insomnia Insight. I'm Daniel, an insomnia coach, previously a sleep doctor, now also an educator. And in today's episode, we are going to take a look at an email I got a few weeks ago from Al, which inspired this episode. I hope you'll find a lot of value here. Now, with that said, let me share with you this email from Al that came in again a few weeks ago. Here it is. Al said, and this is not the entire email, but this is the pertinent part. I have a video idea for you. Talk about the inner monologue when awake at night. Al says, perhaps a video talking about what one thinks about or should think about when awake at night would be helpful. That's the real rubber meets the road time, and people might find practical advice on that helpful. For example, here are the kinds of things that might go through one's mind from my experience. Okay, I know I'll be okay tomorrow. I was doing so well, and now I'm having a really bad night. It should be effortless. So think about something else. I hate this. What can I do tomorrow that will be fun? I'm so stressed. Should I get out of bed? I'll think about and compose that scene that I'm going to write tomorrow. Should I do breathing exercises? Should I meditate? I can't believe I'm still awake. A hypnic jerk. That's good. I'll fall asleep soon. Don't look at the clock. Okay, it feels like it's almost time. I hope I'm asleep when my alarm goes off. Don't worry about being awake or not. No, sorry. Don't worry about being awake or a hot flash will happen. Maybe I should check the clock because if it's almost time to get up, I should try to fall asleep again. If I get out of bed, what would I do? There's a strange thought. Good. That means I'm falling asleep. Am I having paradoxical insomnia? Which of those should be encouraged and which avoided? Now, I wanted to share all of these thoughts. I could have skipped some of those thoughts because we have seen Al's points, but I wanted to read all of them because I'm sure this will sound very familiar to you. Maybe the theme, or maybe you've had many of these specific thoughts, like the exact same ones that Al has had when you found yourself awake at night. And you may have also wondered, should I have this thought, or should I kind of avoid this thought, or should I have more of this one? And we can easily come to the conclusion that a thought like I hate this is not helpful, and we should try to avoid that one. Whereas a thought like it's okay, I'll be okay tomorrow is a helpful thought, and we should try to have that one. But this line of thinking is tricky for two reasons. One is the predictability conundrum, and one is the producibility conundrum. And finally, we're going to see how there are actually some thoughts that help. So I kind of went over the outline with you right there. So we're going to talk here about predictability, we're going to talk about producibility, and then we're going to talk about the thoughts that do help. Now, firstly, on the note of predictability, here's the thing. After any given thought, we may fall asleep or not fall asleep. There is actually no way to predict that. And one example of this that I hear of all the time is somebody telling me, hey, Daniel, yesterday I was really anxious, and the last thought I had in my mind was, I'm not going to sleep a wink. And then I fell asleep, and I woke up in the morning, which shows you that surprisingly, even a thought like, oh my gosh, I'm not going to fall asleep at all in a state of anxiety doesn't predict that we're going to have a really choppy night. Similarly, I've heard this one countless times as well. I had a great day yesterday. I was calm and composed. And the last, the last thing I thought before going to bed was I think I'm going to sleep really well tonight. And if I don't, that's totally fine. And then I had a really, really difficult night, which, shows you the same thing, that even if we have some, what sounds like a really helpful thought, like I'm willing to experience whatever happens, I'm not going to control things tonight, that does not predict what's going to happen that very night, right? And there's more on this topic actually in another episode, Insomnia Insight number 570, which is titled The Last Thought. But my point is simply that we cannot predict what's going to happen any given night in terms of our sleep based on, any given thought we have that night. And also, even if that wasn't the case, even if we actually could predict how well we would sleep, depending on what thought we had, we would run into another conundrum, which is the producibility conundrum. There is actually no way for us humans to decide which thought we're going to have. In fact, it's somewhat of the opposite, that the more we try to think of, for example, a pink elephant, or let's put it this way instead, the more we try not to think about a pink elephant, the more we do. Like if I tell you, don't think about a pink elephant, you think about it, right? And on the other hand, if somebody says like, think of nothing but a pink elephant, suddenly all other thoughts are going to kind of come and try to like take that place, which just illustrates that we cannot really decide what we're going to think of. We cannot control our thoughts. We cannot control what thoughts are produced in the mind. And now, when you come to this point and you realize that, okay, I can't predict how I'm going to sleep based on whatever thought pops up in my mind, and I also can't decide what thought pops up in my mind. Well, so what do I do with this information? Like, how is this helpful and practical? It actually is quite helpful and practical, because when we see this and when we no longer attempt to think of thoughts as good and bad, helpful or unhelpful, and we don't try to produce any particular thought, then we're leaving this struggle. Like, we're leaving attempts of having control. We're leaving attempts at trying to manage sleep. And that leads us to this place of effortlessness, where we're okay with whatever thought comes. And that leads us to a place of peaceful sleep and peace of mind. With that said, I had promised to share some thoughts that are actually helpful. And now, of course, these are not going to be thoughts that will make you sleep. No, that's never helpful to think of things in that way. But there are some thoughts in the context of thoughts that I think actually really help. And it's thoughts of this nature. So if we're thinking or believing, maybe I should say, it's okay to have any thought, I'd say that's a helpful thought. Or trying to control thoughts lead to struggle. That's another thought that really helps with sleep, because again, it places us on this path of trying less to control, trying less to manage, and finding things happen easier and easier for ourselves. Now, maybe final note here is that kind of like to amplify something that I think is helpful, is that thoughts can be thought of like these little like messages, like a message from the brain to like our conscious self. And they can be anything from like, oh, it's raining outside, or like, I should bake some bread. Those are all the thoughts, right? And they're by nature fleeting. But what can happen is, if we try to avoid them, the same thing happens as if somebody's trying to send you a message and you don't want to hear it. Like somebody's trying to tell you something and you kind of ignore them, or you're just like distracted. They're going to be like, wait, listen, you got to hear this. I want to tell you this. They're going to try to get your attention. In other words, a message that is not communicated, that is not transmitted, is going to want to like amplify itself, or the whatever transmitting entity is going to want to amplify that message. So the more we try to avoid a message, the more sticky it becomes. Like the more, and that's why we can have these recurrent thoughts, intrusive thoughts, like obsessive thoughts, because we're trying to block them, right? On the other hand, when we no longer have a preference, when we no longer try to control them, and also when we're just like, if a thought happens, we let it happen, we don't try to push it back, then thoughts become fleeting. They just come and go. They don't bother us at all. They don't stand in our way of peaceful sleep. Hope this was helpful to you. Let me know what you thought, and I look forward to seeing you real soon in another video. Bye for now.
Hi, it's me, Daniel, and I hope you took a ton of value away from the video that you just watched. But if you have been watching for a long time and you're still not at that place of peaceful sleep and peace of mind, maybe it's time for something new. And I say this because every so often, a student in our Insomnia Immunity program tells me, Daniel, I had been tuning in for 2 years and I only decided to join now, and I don't know why I waited so long because this is exactly what I needed. The thing is that our free content can be all you need. It can lead to where you want to be. And this is, of course, why we share everything freely. But often we need a little bit more than that. Support, community, guidance, discussion, discourse, and you can find this in our Insomnia Immunity program. You can find it in BedTyme as well. So if you've been tuning in for a long time and you think it's time for something new, then check out these options on our website, thesleepcoachschool.com. And if you decide this is the time to join, then we can't wait to see you on the other side.